What is this? I'll tell you what it is. Big news today. Guild Wars 2 End of Dragons strike missions. Now, I've actually been looking forward to this post for a long time. Something like this was definitely, well, a surefire thing to happen, because it's one of the few things that hasn't been discussed that much from the End of Dragons expansion. It was one of those kind of headliner features they dropped in the official announcement. They talked about the fact that they're going to be strike missions with challenge modes, but now we've got some details, guys. It's Cameron. He's here. He's the Fractal CM man. He's the hardcore content man, and now he is the strike mission man. I love to see it. Let's go. Let's get the energy. I actually haven't read this, guys. A lot of the time when I read posts on stream, I've read them before while I'm like crawling out of bed, eating a little bit of breakfast. But this time, this is going to be new. Everything here, brand new. Let's get into it. Hi all. I'm Cameron Rich, lead for the Encounters design team here at ArenaNet. The Encounters team is responsible for the PvE encounter experiences in Guild Wars 2, including designing and balancing all of our new creatures, armies, bosses, and instance content. Wow, big scope there. End of Dragons is on the horizon, bringing with it a series of new strike missions that aim to provide accessible, challenging combat experiences for players to chew on. Since this content was first revealed during an expansion livestream announcement on July 27th, we have been listening to all of your comments, questions, and concerns regarding strike missions and endgame PvE as a whole. Well, I love to hear that, because one thing that I think people were really kind of looking for is how hard is it going to be? How many are there going to be? Like, what's the plan for releasing future ones? Right, and hoping for some gameplay. Now, they're all tied to the story, so presumably that probably won't happen. But, you know, we might get some details here. Let's get into it, guys. We'll share our vision for strike missions as a game mode and provide a deeper look at what you can expect when Guild Wars 2 End of Dragons ships next February, including a look at both difficulty modes and changes to the reward structure. I like it. That's pretty good, because a really big problem with strike missions, the strike missions right now, guys, think of them as a raid, 10 players, but instead of having like a big instance, it's just like a boss, right? It's a boss living in a box, having a grand old time, and you get in there and fight it. A lot like Final Fantasy. Final Fantasy is a very similar setup to this, actually, with the way they design a lot of their encounters, including the fact that they're typically story-driven, and these strike missions will actually essentially be story bosses reincarnated as little mini raid bosses. Accessible endgame. Players looking for endgame instance PvE experiences in Guild Wars 2 will find a wide range of challenges to test their skills in fractals, strikes, and raids. Dude, I like how fractals get caps, strikes get caps, but raids, lowercase, okay? Yeah, where you belong, in the trash heap. Feels bad, Ben, if you're a raid enjoyer. Poor old raids. But yeah, raids certainly on the back burner, basically getting replaced here by strike missions. Getting started in this world of challenging group content can be daunting, especially if you're looking to climb the difficulty ladder and take on the toughest encounters in the game has to offer. So where do you start? This is actually a really big question, because the actual pathway through PvE content in Guild Wars 2 is not obvious, because fractals are where you'd expect it to be. They're basically dungeons, but fractals are actually not the most accessible type of content, because you actually kind of start to need getting ascended gear. You need to get that ascended gear there, so you have to need agony infusions, right? And honestly, some of the fractals can be pretty punishing if you don't know what's going on, particularly the challenge modes. And strike missions are actually much easier, particularly the easier ones. And of course, even some raids are easier than some fractal challenge modes. And you don't need agony resistance or ascended gear for fractals or strikes. So it is a very kind of muddly, confused thing, but it does look like they're trying to say strike missions are going to be maybe the entry-level PvE endgames. Let's see what they say here. Normal difficulty strike missions are intended to be an entry point into the world of 10-player content in Guild Wars 2. These instances are designed to be something you can tackle alongside both close friends and new allies, pitting you and the 9 others against jazzed-up, remixed versions of epic, exciting bosses from the Guild Wars 2 End of Dragons story. There you go, right? This gives every player the opportunity to experience these encounters as key story moments, while enabling each strike mission to hold greater importance in the overall narrative. Yeah, so 2 things here. This means that 1, the bosses are going to be more boss fight designed, so they're going to feel a bit more punchy, even if they're on the story mode difficulty. 2, notice what this means. This is an extremely important statement. This means that when they're developing challenging endgame content, it will always be high value for them, because they're not basically dumping resources into something that no players are going to play. Because every player who plays through the story story, which is most players, right? That's the majority of content in the game, will be getting value out of these encounters. And bear in mind, guys, the way they design the challenge modes is they do it top down. So they make the CM, then strip it away for the easier modes. So in other words, they lose nothing by doing this, therefore making a very efficient development proposition for ArenaNet. Love to see it. Very good. These encounters will introduce you to the mechanics you'll need to learn and master in order to continue your journey, in an environment that doesn't demand perfection, but still pushes you to learn and grow your combat capabilities. Honestly, a lot like Strikes now. Not the hardest thing in the universe, but you will need to learn a few basic mechanics to, to kind of get through them, right? By the time you've completed each strike mission, you'll be familiar with encounter-like terms like fixates, stack and spread, kiting, and more. Our goal is that once you've got a firm grasp of the fundamentals, you should feel confident tackling the next step in the difficulty ladder, including a much-requested addition to strike mission, which is the challenge mode. So, what I like about this is that it looks like they're actually going to try and make everything very standardized in terms of telegraphs. For example, one thing that you guys probably noticed in Halloween, check out the bosses in Halloween. You know, the candy corn guy, he's got blue AoEs that you stand in with little arrows pointing to them. The chainsaw skeleton, the labyrinthine horror, has a really big orange AoE that you want to not stand in there. The new bosses, the pumpkin boss and the kind of like the willbender boss that dashes around, massive telegraphing. So I actually like this. It looks like they're actually looking to really standardize their telegraphing in the open world, in strike missions, and introduce these mechanics, you know, generic mechanics like spread, right? Stack up for a mechanic, right? Go in a green circle, go in a blue circle, right? Don't stand in the red stuff. This is actually a very key part of allowing players to transfer knowledge from different pieces of content, which is something that actually is a bit weird right now. Fractals don't play out like raids. Raids play a bit like strikes sometimes, but a lot of content in the game is actually very, very different, right, with the way the endgame PvE is. Like, for example, fractal challenge modes are nothing like raids. They're very different. They're much more fast-paced, right? They're much more individual, right, with a lot more kind of attacks, like bullet hell style thing, whereas raids are a lot slower-paced. Strikes are almost like a bit of a mixture between the two. More towards the raid side, I guess. But yeah, I think this is really good. Like standardizing things and making it so that the player can say, oh, I know what that means because I saw it in this strike mission. Oh, I saw that in open world, so I know what this means in a fractal, in a raid. Very good. You heard it right on the End of Dragons first live stream. Challenge mode difficulty is coming in Guild Wars 2 End of Dragons. Challenge mode takes the normal difficulty strike missions and further expands on their mechanics, remixing them further to create even greater challenges while introducing new surprises that keep players on their toes. Each challenge mode strike mission is designed with a specific level of challenge in mind, creating a clear difficulty ramp, that will push you forward and continuously test your coordination and mastery of the combat system. That, okay, I'm not sure how to feel about that, because in my opinion, challenge, that means that some of the CMs are probably very easy. Let me translate that for you, because they're saying, oh yeah, we're going to difficulty ramp you up. Okay, no, I get it. I see what they want to do there. That's all right, I guess. It's fine. But I would like to have seen them all be really, really hard, like 5, like super challenging challenges. This seems to me tends to imply that the earlier ones that come out are going to be fairly easy, and not all of them are going to be really, really brutal, which is unfortunate, but oh well, that's fine, I guess. It is important to have a bit of variety. I think it's good to have stuff like a slightly easier CM, like Mercer Overseas CM, before ramping up to Samurog or Doom or Kadim. So I'm okay with this. Like, that'll do. It makes sense, right? Like, having, like, the final boss be the hardest one, I think is important, right? You know, I think it's always really cool that, oh, yeah, the one at the end, like, for example, this would be the end of the story, right? So presumably, maybe the final boss in the story is brutal on CM, but some of the earlier bosses on CM are maybe not too bad. I think I will begrudgingly accept that, because I think it makes sense from a gameplay induction loop for the endgame for newer players. More succinctly, these encounters will feel like proper raid bosses. Okay, that's actually a very strong statement. I know that might seem a little bit wishy-washy. I think that's actually the opposite. They are essentially saying that these challenge modes will be raid level. Now, what they didn't say here, will it be raid CM level? Because there is a big difference between Doom and a Doom CM. Okay? Right? That's not the same thing. If they mean, what do they mean by raid boss? Do they mean Veil Guardian? Do they mean Sabbather? right? Because raids are obviously very varied, but they're kind of in that vein there as well. But that's a little bit uncertain with how difficult it's going to be. And yeah, this is where they talk about the top-down. They've actually spoken about this before, actually. Cameron mentioned this in a podcast with Deeg, actually. Good podcast, definitely worth watching. But you know, this is how they do challenge modes. It's very obviously how they did Wing 4 as well, right? They made the CM and then they reduced it to make it for the normal mode. You know, like Samrog is basically like a juiced up version, but they did Samrog CM first, then tone it down, which is why a lot of the Wing 4 bosses feel very incomplete without the challenge mode. Particularly, I'd point out Mercer Overseer feels like, what the hell is this without challenge mode? Very weird encounter without challenge mode. To ensure these fights live up to the challenge mode name, we set out from the beginning to design each encounter in a top-down fashion, starting with an outline of how challenge mode would play out. We began by detailing unique mechanics, estimating time to kill, and damage thresholds players would need to meet in order to succeed, and identifying clear roles required for each player in the squad. Once we had a firm grasp on the challenge mode experience, we dialed in the difficulty for normal mode and story mode. Great. And this, what do they say here? Look at what they say. ArenaNet, I love you. Cameron is a god. They'd better not let me on that extra life, because I'm just going to give him like a big hug and break his spine. Hell yeah, Cameron. Let's go. Okay, this is awesome. So they've essentially said that they have 3 difficulties here. We have our story mode, we have our normal mode, and we have our challenge mode. This is how you design PvE content in an MMO. That is how you do it. Final Fantasy does it. WoW does it. These games, I mean, obviously, oh, WoW, doing very, very badly. No one plays World of Warcraft. No one plays Final Fantasy. These are dead games. They've got there in the end. This is a very, very good sign and sensible design approach. Now, of course, guys, there is a bit of a thing here that I don't expect to see this later on, but I think we need Nightmare mode as well. Because I actually suspect that challenge mode will be hard, but probably not too bad. I think we need to see a Nightmare mode. Now, that's going to happen a little bit later on, don't get me wrong, because I think they'll want to see if these strike missions do well. What's the take-up rate? How many people are doing normal? How many are doing story? How many are doing the challenge mode, right? Like, is the system working? Is it popular with the raiders, with the hardcore players, with the more casual players there as well? Like, what's going on there? However, I think that this is actually going to require another step up, right? A brutal insanity nightmare mode to really push the best of the best. Because I actually very much suspect that challenge mode won't be that difficult. Because the way they're talking about it, it seems like challenge mode is going to be like a normal mode raid boss. So I think we need another level on top of that. Although it's obviously way too early to judge that. But that, from the wording of this article, that's what I'm getting from this. But yeah, and honestly, more difficulty granularity is good, right? It's always good to have more granularity. Look, you know, in WoW, you have looking for raid, normal, heroic, mythic, right? I think that is just a perfect thing, right? You have 4 levels, right? 1 for very casual, 1 for people trying to get into it with normals, heroic for people who are like, okay, yeah, well, let's get good at the game, and mythic for the people who have no life, right? That is, I think, a really good kind of a delineation there, or, you know, granularity that you can have with difficulty. Through this method, more players can engage with the content we build at difficult level they feel is comfortable. Exactly, right? This has always been the issue with raids. Raids have never been accessible because you have to get good to clear them. And to experience that content, you must be at a certain skill level, which quite frankly, 90% of players are not at. So, this is exactly, I mean, look, I really hate to say this, guys, but every other MMO figured this out a long time ago. So, I mean, all I can say is this is correct. This is the correct approach. This is how we approach the design for challenge mode, fractals, and raids. So if you're familiar with this content, consider them a good reference point. Challenge modes will be enabled in the weeks after the Guild Wars 2 End of Dragons launch, allowing you time to enjoy the story and world at your own pace, get familiarized with normal mode strikes, and perfect your builds, especially with the 9 new elite specializations. The team is eagerly looking forward to watching the player base tackle these new challenges. We'll give more precise details on when you can expect challenge modes to release as we get closer to launch. That's interesting, actually. Ooh, you know, I am super curious about this. So, 1, the CMs are going to be a few weeks after launch, maybe like, you know, 2 weeks, maybe even more than that after launch. I wonder if they're going to do them one by one. I wonder if they, because if they do them all at once, then obviously you don't really have that world's first race style thing. You don't have that element of like, oh shit, who's going to kill it first? Who's going to get one? Because, you know, you could just go for the last one, right? You could like say, oh, I'm going to do the last one. Haha, beat you guys. Haha. While everyone's still on like the first or second strike mission or something like that. So, I wonder if they'll do it one by one. That could be a distinct possibility. It would be good for some hype, although it could maybe fizzle a bit if they're all quite easy. But, you know, we'll see. We shall see. They could do like a weekly CM strike getting released like every Tuesday for a while. I could see that happening. Standardizing shinies. Ah, yes, rewards. This is actually a really big problem with strikes. Strikes are a bit weird right now because the reward systems are actually very good. Like, doing strikes every day, it's actually some of the most time-efficient gold farming you can do. It's just that the reward structure, you require, like, a fucking PhD to actually understand how it works with all the different currencies, all the different random items that you get, and how to actually convert that into something that you can use to buy stuff with. So, it's a good thing they're actually looking at this. When we first introduced strike missions in the Icebrood Saga, we took an opportunity to try a new reward system with the weekly chest and attempted to create a week-to-week cycle to encourage players to return to strike missions on a regular basis. However, the system missed the intended mark, using too many currencies and causing confusion around how to deal with them. Yeah, correct. So we'll return to basics and that our raid players will find familiar. Oh wow, it's just gonna be like Magnetite then. Strike missions in Ender Dragons will reward a single currency. Perfect. Beautiful. Any Ender Dragon strike missions you complete will reward currency to be spent on strike mission specific rewards, including any unique drops from strike missions. Oh, so like, you know, skins, ascended, right, stuff like. Great, awesome. Awesome. That sounds amazing. You won't be beholden to the fickle fate of a random number generation to get what you want. Yeah, that's the same thing as raids, right? Because in raids, you can either buy an item, like buy an infusion or buy a skin after you've cleared the boss, or wait for it to drop. But sometimes I mean, look, I didn't see a Matthias staff drop for over a year, I think, of full clearing every week. So you can definitely get RNG memed really hard. So it's kind of nice to have this. Although, I will actually slam this a little bit, guys. I know it sucks, but I actually do like the idea of the only way you got this item is by dropping it in a raid. So what I would like to see is if they do add stuff like ghostly infusions, right, to strike missions, don't make them sellable. Okay, on the TP. I don't mind like the kind of the pity timer of being able to buy it with currency. I think that's all right. But I think you should not be able to sell the Doom Throne. Right? You should not be able to sell Peerless Infusion. These should be things that you either drop or you farm from the raid. That makes them so much more special. That means that that player has done the raid. And yeah, you can sell it. I know, I get it. You can sell it. You can. But it would obviously, you know, it would still reduce the accessibility of the item and really tie it to that piece of content. I think tying items to content is really cool, rather than tying it to gold as an alternative. So that would be my. It's not like a deal breaker for me. I don't really mind, but it's always. I always like things that you have to have done that bit of content, like Gen 2s. Right, I like Gen 2 legendaries because anyone who's got Chuka and Chompawat, I know they did that Tiger quest. Right? Anyone who's got a PvP gizmo, they exactly won the monthly AT, right? Maybe someone else was playing for them on their account, but they won the monthly AT one way or another, right? Okay, and that's like, I think that kind of reward is very meaningful and fun, right? Yeah, you could give it, yeah, exactly. You could give vendor value, exactly, kidda, yeah. Give it some vendor value, make the ghostly like be worth 100 gold, right? So if you don't want a ghostly, you can just sell it to the vendor. Yeah, that sounds perfect. That is less perfect than it sounds, though, because that would generate liquid gold. And they don't really want you to do that. Like, because generating 100 flat liquid because if you sell a ghostly, you take someone else's gold, right? Like, you aren't generating new gold. You're taking someone else's. So you would have to be a little bit careful with injecting that much liquid into the game. It might have to be a lot cheaper, like 10 gold or something like that, rather than 100. But yeah, that would definitely be an alternative. Additionally, we'll be consolidating the strike mission currencies introduced in the Icebrood Saga into one currency with no weekly cycle. Oh, nice. Okay, so they're actually going to go back and keep these strikes alive then. You'll be able to trade in your Ender Dragon strike mission currency for the Icebrood Saga strike mission currency, so you can easily go back for all the rewards you may have missed while still being able to play the latest and greatest challenges. Oh, great. So just a bit like divinations then. Or you can translate them back and forth. Awesome. Until next time. As always, thank you for your candid feedback and your continued support. Your shared perspectives help ground us and shape the game for the better. After all, Guild Wars 2 would not be where it is today without you. Cameron and the Guild Wars 2 team. Yeah, fun article there. Now, okay. I understand that ArenaNet can't do this, but I do have to say that they have made a mistake here, right? And this means that people are not going to be fully reassured by this article, even though I think there are some really cool pieces of information here. Do you know what the issue is, guys? Allow me to tell you. they can't show gameplay. Because they don't want to spoil the story, right? They should have done one strike mission that wasn't story related. Ah, such a mistake, dude, okay? Come on, just one, right? Just one that wasn't with the story. Because the problem is that now we don't know how hard this is, okay? We don't know what this looks like or how the content is or how the gameplay actually works. And it's because they can't show it because it would spoil the story because all of the bosses are tied to the story. So, hey, little bit of a tip, guys, for X-Pack number 4, okay? If you guys end up doing that, make at least one nothing to do with the story so you can actually demonstrate it, because I would love to see this on stream, right? It would be so cool to actually see the new strike mission, see the devs tackle it, how they go about it, or you just show us what's the CM, how hard is the CM, how punishing is it, like have like a bit of an in-depth dialogue about that. Because look, that's what a lot of the endgame, but that's what is really kind of on the mind of a lot of the hardcore players. How hard is it? What does it look like? Is it really complicated? Is it mechanically elaborate? Are you in a small room? Is it a big room? How big is the arena? Are there some like Veil Guardian, some like Lagos? Is it all the same circular arena? Like, we don't know. We have like the vision here, and it's a great vision. Love the vision here from Cameron and the Encounters design team. Love that. Awesome. But we don't know the actual, the meat, right? Like the actual bones of this. Like, how does it work mechanically? What's going on? How's the variety? Because if you look at stuff like Bone Skinner and all the strikes we have right now, they're in the same size arena, right? It's the same arena. All the bosses are typically fairly static, don't move around that much, right? And there's not a lot of movement in general, right? Like, they're all, you know, there's no like, oh, go to that platform like Sabir. There's no split up into 3 groups like Kadim, for example, or, you know, a giant arena like Doom, or, you know, like an arena that changes, well, Veil Guardian, jumping off, gliding like Gorseval, right? Like, there's no, you know, weird mechanics like Sabbath cannons. We don't know if this is within the scope of strike missions for the future. And I think, I mean, again, I understand they don't want to spoil the story. That to me is, look, I know because they just show it anyway. I'll actually kind of defend ArenaNet on this. Like, it is a story-driven game, and they don't want to show off the spoilers of the story just yet. I think that's actually fair. I know it's kind of annoying, right? And it sucks for us as the player, but I will actually defend their motivation here. Like, spoiling a story-driven game doesn't really make a lot of sense, particularly when this is a very niche audience regardless. It would be nice if they could show off a non-storyline. I mean, look, people kind of speculate that maybe this giant crab that they showed on the announcement live stream could have been a strike mission or something like that. But I guess the giant crab is either story-related or or just is like a random cool piece of artwork there, you know? But there you go. Yeah, they could show gameplay, kidder. Yeah, they could do like a gameplay trailer. That would be cool. So maybe not really show off the entire fight, like really cool parts of it. Almost make like an Elitist Raiding Party 3 trailer style thing. Like the boss is like smashing and doing AoEs and everyone running around in circles going crazy to maybe not spoil stuff there. You could definitely have like a really cool action trailer to do that. So maybe we'll see that a little bit later on, closer to release. But I've got to say, I'm very happy actually with this. I like the vision here. I really hope they can deliver on it. I'm looking forward to jumping into these strike mission challenge modes there. And there's one thing here that they didn't say. It's very conspicuously absent. I believe there are 5 on launch. Don't quote me on that, because some people have said that they didn't say that. Some people told me they did say that. Some people said they didn't. But let's just assume that there's going to be around 5 strikes. That's a good number on launch, by the way. That's like 5 raid bosses on launch. Not bad, right? Pretty good. What I want to know is how many per release. Okay? How many? So if we have a living story release and it's got, you know, every 3 months, let's say every 3 months, right? Which is what we normally have now. We have like every 3 months. Is it going to be 3 bosses every 3 months? Because that would be sick. Do they have the energy, the bandwidth to actually do that? So they could take 3 story bosses every episode and turn them into strikes with CMs? I mean, damn, that would be sick if they could do that. Unreal. Be amazing. Okay? And I know you guys are saying no chance, but bear in mind, guys, have you guys played through Living Story? Okay, let's talk about it. Let's talk about it, guys. I'm actually going to defend ArenaNet here. I think this is conceivable, right? Let's talk about Season 4. So, Season 4, Long Live the Lich. You have Joko here as a boss, right? He's like a strike mission. He could be made into a strike mission boss. But also, there's actually a little mini boss there too. Like, you fight his, like, dog lieutenant, right? So you could fight the Dogega, right, in there as well. There could be dog boss, too. And all of these episodes actually have a few monsters that I think could be there. At least 2 in basically every episode that I think could actually be translated into a strike mission encounter as part of the story. That is very conceivable, in my opinion, that could happen. Okay, yeah, there's the huge golem. That was bug in the system, right? Yeah, you have like the mega golem in bug in the system, I think. You have Amala in Daybreak, which of course she ended up being a fractal boss too, with the, you know, the Twilight memes, Twilight Oasis, whatever it is, there as well. I feel like 2 to 3 per episode is actually very doable. Balthazar, obviously, in Path of Fire was very doable there. War Eternal, you have like a big Kralkatoric fight. That could be a strike mission boss there. Yeah, Scruffy was season... Scruffy is bug in the system, no? So you had the giant golem here, and you also had Scruffy and bug in the system. So you have like a double boss there too. There's a lot that could very easily be made. And who knows, maybe they could also go back and add old bosses to the roster, right, of strike missions. There are loads of them. Like Balthazar could be a raid boss. I don't see why they wouldn't go back and do that. Would be a cool, like, blast from the past thing there. Scruffy was Daybreak. Oh, Scruffy was episode 1. Okay, yeah, okay. So Scruffy was episode 1. Then 2, you have, like, the cool, like, giant golem thing here. Then you have Joko here. Possible. Yeah, Zaitan strike mission, Mordremoth strike mission could easily be added, I think. Well, the code for that's probably very noodly, so maybe saying easy is maybe not the best idea, but you see what I mean, right? Oh yeah, Lona, yeah. Oh yeah. There are 2. Yeah, I knew there were 2 bosses. Yeah, you have that cool boss. Oh, this boss is sick. Where you were like teleporting all over the place and you go through all the different areas with that weird portal thing in Bug. Yeah. I know the one. Yeah, I know the one. Pretty good. Big Nose Ted. Yeah, Big Nose Ted strike mission, guys. But I think this is it's not raids. Okay? It isn't. Okay? It isn't raids. But what it is a system that can be built upon and is actually sustainable and expandable for ArenaNet. They could scale this up to more than 1 boss per strike. They could even consider reintroducing raids back into the game, okay, over time with this difficulty setting tech. That's possible. They could even, if they actually went on this really hard, they could have like the final, they could do 1 raid a year where it has an easy story mode that everyone can play through the raid, okay, and you have a normal and a CM. So you actually have like a dedicated map for a raid for the end boss of Living Story, or something like that. So raids could also use this same technology and approach to be really cool, I think, with strike missions. It's possible, right? Pretty cool. Pretty damn cool, if you ask me, guys. But that's it. That's all that we have on strikes for now. I do hope we get a bit more information. I'd love to see a live stream about them, or, hey, call me, guys. Love to do an interview. Okay, like, you know, that one with Raymond and Grouch is really great, actually, like, about alliances. I'd love to do something similar for strike missions, or someone else could do it, right? Just like a dev stream talking about strikes, giving us a few more details, get CMC in there for good measure so we get the hydration quotient in play too. Could be good. Very, very cool indeed. Very hyped indeed. Hype gaming. I'm on Copium right now, guys. Copium, Hopium, mixing them both up and hitting them at the same time. You love to see it. Strike missions. I was right about strikes the entire time. You know what? Last thing on this before we move on. I was right about strikes. Do you guys... Wait, do I have that command in my chat? Where is it? I made a video about strike missions a very long time ago. Yes, here it is, right? Check that date. October 17th, 2019, okay? I made the call that strike missions could actually be essentially take bosses from the story and make them really, really challenging and really engaging. And that's exactly what they did now. I was right about strikes the entire time. This is a very hilarious example, by the way, because you could actually solo this one, as you can see here. Don't mind that, guys. This is very, very hard content. Extremely challenging gameplay here, guys. Make no mistake. Only the top tier of players are going to be able to actually clear these strike missions. As you can see, it is borderline impossible for anyone, okay, to actually clear this content. But there you go. Bonus meme. I was right about strikes the entire time. Boom. Easy game. Easy life.